Are you an independent musician feeling overwhelmed by the endless act of juggling creativity, business, and self-care? You're not alone. That's why I created the Artist Mind Map. The Artist Mind Map is a free blueprint designed to help you get clear on the route you need to take to attain your career goals in alignment to your artistic values. This is not just another random PDF page for the forgotten corners of your hard disk. It's a timeless roadmap you can use for decades to come. Think of it as a go-to overview to consult. When you grab your free mind map, you get exclusive access to a masterclass that will take your career to the next level. I use the same methodologies and systems for my high-end paying clients and students. So why am I giving it to you for free? Simple. I want to build a community of artists who can count on each other for safe spaces. Music saved my life. I believe that you have all that it takes to be the artist you were meant to be, if you're willing to put in the work. And more importantly, understanding what that work is. And the Artist Mind Map was designed to help you do exactly that. So if this resonates with you, go to artistmindmap.com and download this resource. artistmindmap.com. All right, folks, tonight's going to be a super rough, kind of a dirty kind of a recording session. For those of you who were on my episode last week, you might remember that I've been in transit. I'll be in Asia for the next 3 months. I just got here a few days back. There's a lot of logistics I'm taking care of. So yeah, quite a few dynamic changes going on. But that being said, I didn't want to leave you folks hanging. Consistency is key. Consistency is valuable in what we do here. So I do want to make sure I leave you with something. Excuse me. Also, here's some news. Peter Crone is coming onto my podcast this week. There's a live taping session which he's been cool enough to open up to audiences. Let me rephrase that. Peter Crone's coming onto my podcast, and the recording session, the taping session, is something he's open to having open to you folks, to you. So if you listen to this on time, you should find the link to the taping session, which you can join in on and take part in the Q&A session maybe. I have no idea how the session's going to flow. Both me and Peter like to converse without scripts and go with an intuitive compass, go along with an intuitive compass. So I have no idea what's going to happen, but I can assure you it's going to be a conversation so worth being a part of. It is absolutely unnecessary for me to even try and explain why. If for those of you who haven't heard of him, just do the research. You know, people put in a lot of effort, or multiple efforts, to make sure they get to hang out with him, to be part of conversations like these. So make sure you go check out that link. And if you're lucky, there might be a few slots left for you to come join us. Okay, I want to address something I came up with actually during the course of my work with Peter. I graduated his mastermind a few weeks back. And one of the topics although this is not something he addressed at any point directly, but something I really started pondering over was the correlations between intentionality and awareness. I guess it kind of all started off with me realizing that for the longest time, I might have been conflating the two at some level or the other. So I jotted out some thoughts back in the day, a few weeks back, and I had a rough draft on it on my blog, so I'd like to riff on it a little, and that'll be our podcast episode for today. I'm calling it Intentionality versus Awareness, an artist's perspective. Now, as you might know, when I say artist, I'm not referring to professional artists and musicians exclusively anymore. At this point, I'd like to find the artist within every single one of you listening, actively or passively. Or when I say passively, that would obviously equate me helping you facilitate finding the artist within yourself, regardless of what your vocation happens to be. A lot more coming up on that, in case that sounded too vague. But long story short, in case you don't consider yourself an artist, hear me out anyways. What we're about to talk about is something you might find quite pertinent in the phase of your life you're in right now. Welcome to another session solo cast. These solo casts were designed to help independent artists and musicians like you navigate the very complex labyrinth that is your artistic practice and career. They're based on empirical research and experiences of my own career as an independent musician and an educator and coach working with artists just like you. The primary aim behind these sessions is to offer accessibility to the kind of education many of us need to work with in order to forward ourselves in these very confusing times as empowered and independent artists in the truest sense of the word. During the course of my ponderings, my musings over this topic, I came up with this. What moves art? Great art. What is it that really moves it? Any ideas? If you're thinking out loud to yourself, good. A few answers people usually come up with are talent, which I don't agree with. Some will go to the other extreme, hustle. It's a pretty generic answer. A lot of people think is what art is about. And who knows? I mean, who am I to say neither of them qualify as a contender to that question? But also, it's not exactly the tiniest question out there, is it? What moves great art? But I'll say this. It's not only talent or only hustle. Usually I find myself in two camps, amidst the circles I hang around. There'll be one party who goes talent, 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 and the other who goes hustle, hustle, hustle. So the first thing I want to talk about today with regards to what moves great art is this. It's neither nor in completion. It's never just talent or just hustle. By the way, hustles, I'm not from the hustle camp anyways. That makes great art. So, what is it then? Here's an idea. Intentionality. I talk about intentionality all the freaking time, don't I? Intentionality, the why. But that being said, for those of you who are sick of me going on about why, and intentionality, I got good news for you. Today, I'm going to be talking about an additional layer that I also consider equally important. Awareness. The directed force that chooses intentionality. So, intentionality is that directed force that's chosen, and awareness. I know that sounds very abstract, but hear me out and maybe we'll get somewhere, together. So if intentionality is the actual force that you're kind of driving with, then awareness is the space. That spacious clarity, which sees. So it's almost like a marriage of the inside and the outside, the intrinsic and the extrinsic. Why I titled the blog post Intentionality versus Awareness is this. Because if you confuse the two, intentionality and awareness, there is a risk that you either white knuckle into brittle work or float in some kind of pleasant vagueness. To give you an idea of what I'm getting at, and I'm getting very vague here, people usually go with, awareness, intuition. The awareness usually will be a little too abstract. Yeah? The spacious clarity is something that can be a little self-indulgent, while others who are very intent on intentionality, do come with the risk of sometimes white knuckling their way about. Yeah. So integration is what I'm trying to get at here. So versus in the title isn't actually that appropriate after all. But long story short, combine intentionality with awareness, and we have what we call the true integration of two forces, which are the real deal. That's when art comes alive, in my opinion. That abstract, mystical, weird, beautiful, gorgeous thing we call art, is often the result of us integrating awareness and intentionality. Here's a quote from William James. My experience is what I agree to attend to. Only those items which I notice shape my mind. How's that for a quote? Ponder over that. My experience is what I agree to attend to. Only those items which I notice shape my mind. But how do we make this work in real life? A few working definitions which might help to start off with. To reiterate, intentionality is goal-oriented direction or goal-directed orientation, depending on how you look at it. In fact, research and implementation intentions shows that simple if-then plans can help turn goals into action. So even if the plans, that totally came out wrong, okay. Even if the plans are simple, an intentional approach to implementing them can actually turn goals into action, which obviously results in momentum to manifest those goals or realize them. Awareness, on the other hand, is a non-reactive monitoring. Think about that one. Awareness is a non-reactive monitoring of present moment experience. There's so much mindfulness research out there. And it's often described as attention regulation. Now, that's something I'm getting more and more into, as you've probably noticed by now if you've been listening to my podcasts. Attention regulation combined with curiosity and openness, and is often summarized in academic circles as intention, attention, attitude. IAA, intention, attention, attitude. In short, intentionality chooses, awareness notices. And when they work together, practice deepens and performance loosens. Isn't that cool? Isn't that kind of where we all want to get at? Where does intention belong, though? Like, where exactly do we direct it to? My pointer, my recommendation, my invitation to you, for you to consider, is use intention to set clear, concrete goals. In deliberate practice, focused feedback-based work improves performance more than simply logging hours. Also research-based conclusions. That being said, where intention fails is in real-time creation sometimes, like improvisation, where excessive control can block spontaneity. So that's where it doesn't always necessarily belong in the more traditional sense of the word, even though it does. I mean, this is debatable. I mean, I'm an improvising musician, so I do know that there is a longer arc of intentionality, which I have to keep in mind when I'm improvising. But that being said, if I get too hung up about it, it can backfire, as counterintuitive as it sounds. Now, I know I'm downloading very fast today, very quickly, so if all this is overwhelming, go back and listen to this. Maybe slow down the recording for today's podcast. Where awareness leads. So we covered where intention belongs. Let's talk about where awareness leads. Awareness is the sensory foundation of artistry, especially for musicians. Feeling the room, the ensemble, the breadth, the space between notes. Or if you're a speaker, for example, feeling the room, getting a feel for the room, that's big. But improvisation studies, for example, show that great performance arises when self-monitoring, or hypervigilance, relaxes and awareness widens, expands. There's also research which distinguishes between intentional and unintentional drift, because the first fuels creativity and the second derails it. There's older, FYI, just in case, I mean, you probably don't need me to tell you this, but this isn't some innovative concept, this whole awareness versus intentionality thing. There's actually a lot of literature which is historically addressed this, even though probably from a different frame or different lens, maybe framed it differently. Here's a quote I found, for example: to study the way is to study the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by all things. Practice shapes the self, performance forgets it. Isn't that cool? This is by Dogen. There is another quote in the Advaita Vedanta from Shankara. Check this one out. Rest as awareness while you act. Agency remains, clinging loosens. It's almost like a haiku. So some of the Advaita Vedanta can be very abstract. So let me repeat that again. Feel into it. Get the vibe of it rather than try and interpret it literally. Rest as awareness while you act. Beautiful. Rest as awareness while you act. Agency remains, clinging loosens. Oh, I love that one. Here's another one from Nisargadatta Maharaj. Ready? Awareness makes consciousness possible. Consciousness is partial and changeful. Awareness is total and changeless. Oh, God, I love that. Let me say that again. Awareness makes consciousness possible. Consciousness is partial and changeful. Awareness is total and changeless. This isn't mysticism as an escape. It's like some pretty legit stuff. I mean, metaphysics, maybe abstract, but actually it's not as abstract as many might think. Like, there's so much in there that, again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, neuroscience confirms, and I say broken record because I've been banging on about neuroscience quite a bit because I've been studying a lot of neuroscience of late, by the way. So this isn't abstract woo-woo babble anymore. Do the work and then get out of your own way. That's basically the takeaway here. Do the work, then get out of your own way. Does that make sense? A few common confusions artists face with regards to this, okay? Number one is the productivity trap. Adding more goals to mask anxiety. Try pausing for 2 minutes to feel the body instead before setting your intentions. Yeah. Number two, spiritual bypassing. Calling avoidance flow. This is a big one. Try balancing freedom with deliberate structure instead. Number three, studio freeze. Endless tweaking or endless experimenting disguised as care. This could be in your lab as well, or even in the office, in your workspace. Procrastination, basically, so which is kind of ends up in a freeze. Solution, or suggested solution, alternative, pre-decide your review passes. Then commit to finishing. Let me say that again. I know I'm using some unconventional language today. Pre-decide your review passes. Then commit to finishing. All right, another framework I find exceptionally relevant to what we're talking about today is the why, what, how framework. The model I use in my C.I.A.R. course, the Complete Independent Artist Roadmap. Why, what, how? Which, in my opinion, is an incredibly powerful tool that helps creatives connect intention and awareness on 3 levels. The macro of things, why, purpose, values, what, body of work, how, systems and processes, the meso, the actual project, why, project theme, what, concrete outputs, how, timelines and collaborators, and then the micro, the actual session of things, why, focus or energy of the day, what, key task, how, tools and mental approach. Now, folks, I know I'm like downloading super fast today, but this was a very spontaneous idea I came up with. I highly recommend you go check out the blog post, which will be included on the episode links, and maybe read through it as well. Use that as a chart while you listen if you can, if you're into it. If this is something that feels interesting to you, I highly recommend you go kind of read and listen if you can. A few situations artists and creatives will recognize. Writing under a deadline, songwriting or a thesis, or even a project deadline. Some suggestions to navigate this using what we're talking about today is intend to finish. Stay aware of tension when an honest download comes. It could be a line that sounds good in a song. It could be an idea you've been kind of waiting to get a hang for on your project, or, it doesn't matter what form it comes in, but set the intention to finish something. Just intend to finish something without worrying about if you actually manage to do it or not. But make sure you start off setting that intention. Okay, set that intention, stay aware of the tension, and when the downloads happen, stay honest. Improvising with others, if you're working with others, collaborating with others, intend some musical limits or some artistic limits or even some operative limits. Stay aware of what the group of people you're collaborating with are saying through their actions, through sound, through their work, through their ideas. Okay, creativity at night, working at night. If you're mixing or if you're like in the zone writing, and if this is a situation you struggle with often, odd hours where creativity is something you really want to get into or have deadlines to nail, use intentionality to make some decisions. Intend one decision per pass. Does that make sense? Let me say that again. Intend one decision per pass. Stay aware of the fatigue and embodiment before committing. That's the awareness part. Embodiment. Stay aware of the fatigue and the embodiment, the visceral part of your physical connection to the entire process. Before you commit, get it? So you intend for one decision per project, pass, whatever, while staying aware of the fatigue and embodiment before you actually commit. See what I'm getting here? It's very subtle stuff I'm trying to talk about tonight. I hope you get it, because this is really, really, really interesting stuff. 5 simple drills I want to leave you tonight, okay? Try these out if you're up for it. Or try 1 or try 2. Red light, green light practice. Alternate between free play and micro correction rounds. How's that? Alternate between free play, where you just play, like literally play freely, and micro correction rounds. That was number 1. Number 2, if-then card. Write 3 quick if-then rules for usual distractions. Make sure you don't get too hung up on this, right? This isn't like a binary approach you want to make your second nature per se, but think about it. The 90-second reset. I love this. 3 breaths, feel your feet, expand, hearing the farthest sound you can, and then resume. An alternative I also love is the 30-second reset. Just set a timer for 30 seconds. Yes, you heard me right. 30 seconds and watch yourself breathe. That's the Kenny Werner reset. Okay, number 4, intentional mind wander. 7-minute phone-free walk. Let ideas surface naturally. I do this every day in Berlin. It's actually the first thing I do when I get out of bed. Literally, like, put my clothes on, throw some clothes on, and go for a walk. It makes the world a difference, the kind of nervous system regulation that helps you with. Logging, session logging. Often a really helpful alternative to time management or complementary tool. I don't really like the word tool as much, but a very helpful addition, add-on, or collaborator to your time management system. It's simple to use, really. Before starting, write 1 line each for why, what, how, review after. Log the session. Simple as that. Okay, closing thought for today. I know today is like a really unconventional podcast session, isn't it? Because this is a really raw thing I'm going, and this entire idea, this is like a first-timer. I'm trying to address something quite subtle, and the pace at which I'm talking today is not a coincidence. Let's just keep it at that. I'm not going to go into too many explanations about why I'm speaking at the speed I am tonight, but there is a specific reason behind it. Maybe I'll get into it another time. If you have questions, if you're curious, shoot them at me. Ask me, TL, what the F was up with you? Why were you speaking at breakneck speed at that last podcast session? I'd love to hear that question from some of you. Anyone? Okay, closing thoughts for tonight though. Creatives grow fastest when they train intention like an athlete and awareness like a monk. Then marry the two in the act of creating. Like a wise man once said, study the self until it's safe enough to forget it. Hope that helps. Hey folks, I hope you found that episode helpful. Here's a little request. If you did, consider sharing this episode with your folks. Think about the ways in which they might benefit the way you did. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out if you have queries. My name's TL. I'm an independent musician and educator and the founder of the Holistic Musician Academy.